Hey everyone, it's Sarah. Happy 2024. It is almost the end of January, and I know I haven't been doing these at all for months, so I thought I would get one in before January ends. But who knows, this might end up being the very beginning of February. There's a lot going on, and I decided to prioritize writing books instead of posting update videos. But it's one of those nights where it's cold. It's not as cold. It's January, so it's cold, but it's not as cold as it's been other nights. And I'm not exhausted. And it's sort of crummy outside. And Cedric's sort of running around being anxious about the weather. But whatever. It's time to do an update video. I'm home and I'm in a good mood to do this. So what is going on? First, let's start out with the biggest news. Modern Persuasion is wide and free. That's right. You don't have to buy Modern Persuasion anymore. You have to download it. Amazon will have it free very shortly, but Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, some general ones, it's going to be able to get into libraries. This is an experiment. This is going to be a 2-year-long experiment to see if I'm able to reach more people now that we've got so many reviews on Amazon and I've been giving it away for free on some Stuff Your Kindle days, Stuff Your e-reader days. I'm hopeful that this is the right time to go wide and that it might not necessarily improve my income, but it will definitely improve my reach. So what does this mean? This means you can, if you've never read Modern Persuasion before, you've not managed to get it in a Stuff Your e-reader day, but you read on Barnes & Noble's ebooks or Kobo's ebooks or Apple, or you use your library, you can now get it for free. If you are a Libby Overdrive user, I think most of us are Libby ones now. I think they sort of on Overdrive. You need to request that your library grab it. And in theory, you should be able to search in Libby or in your library's Overdrive interface, Modern Persuasion, and it'll come up with the book. I don't know. I haven't tested it because as I'm recording this, it's just notified me that it's available that way. So we'll see. But it should be. That's really what it is. But if you go to the retailer you want, you download it, it's free. The end. You can read it. And then there should be links in it to take you to Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging, which was free at the end of last year in a Stuff Your Kindle e-reader day. But it's not going to be again. Why did I do it that way? Sorry, Cedric was stretching on the carpet. I did it because Sweeten Up Ginny Darcy is about to come out on... Are you done? On February 14th is the day you'll be able to get Sweeten Up Ginny Darcy paperback, ebook, not audiobook yet. Audiobook's going to be AI, and that's going to take a little bit longer for me to get to. I'm not able to create. I have the stuff to be able to create it. I just don't have the time to put into creating it because I'm doing other things. We're going to get to those other things, but it'll be $214 for Sweeten Up Ginny Darcy. It will also be widely available across platforms. Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging is the one coming next. That'll probably also be in February, so you can get them both. You can read Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging and then go straight into Sweeten Up Ginny Darcy because they are the most direct sequels because they are both Pride and Prejudice. Sweeten Up Ginny Darcy is the gender swap. It's a candy store. Ginny is Ginny from Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging. That's Will Darcy's sister. She doesn't know she's a Mr. Darcy kind of character. Turns out she is, because that's the whole point of the book. But this is the one that it's not a meet cute. It's a what the fuck did I say? Because things come out of her mouth without her thinking. I love this book. I think it's, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think it's one of my best. But I have gotten better as a writer. So that's really not a criteria, an evaluation criteria. Like it is good because it is good. It was fun. And I will have copies of it. If you live in the Merrimack Valley or Massachusetts or New Hampshire and you want to see the book and get the book on release day, paperback in your hand, I will be at Lala Books on Valentine's Day evening. They're doing a Date with Your Shelf event. It's $5, but I'm not the only person there. It'll be like a whole event. I will just happen to be there with a handful of copies of the book to be able to sell you that day. So, it might also be currently on sale. I don't know. Some places, some tiny places, I kind of released it early just to get something rolling on something else for somebody else. So I'm in the middle of an experiment that you don't need to know about. It's not really a reader kind of experiment. It's a retailer kind of experiment, but here and there you can get copies of it already. And if you're a Patreon member, you can still read every chapter for free. They're not going down. What is happening on Patreon now that Sweeten Up Jenny Darcy is done? I'd love to tell you. So right now, as we speak, for January, February, and March, we're reading the Jorge chapters. Now, if you read Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging, it's a lot of P's. You know that Jorge Wickham was our bad guy. He was our Mr. Wickham. And what he did was completely unforgivable. Let's be honest. He not only stole people's identities, but he lured Lydia, got her to give him money. What he did was probably one of the top unforgivable things people can do to each other. Not just men to women, but people to people. So I was originally going to bring him in as the villain in Sweeten Up Jenny Darcy. It made sense. He was her, he harmed her. Lydia from Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging was at Lecoq State around the same time as this book happened. And I was like, if he shows up, if he's out of jail and the two of them are in the same place, or at least circling the same place, we can bring in Lydia. And I realized the storyline I came up with for that was just way too complicated, like unnecessarily complicated, like silly complicated. And I decided to roll it back, because the villain is really Catherine and what Catherine's trying to do in Lecoq. So I was like, let's tighten this up. Let's give it to Catherine. Let her be the villain of the series that she's been angling to be all along. So the chapters I wrote in the first draft about Jorge just sort of sat there untouched, unresolved, not a lot of fleshing out. But I thought that would be a really good set of bonus content to give Patreon participants while we wait for book 7 in the 21st Century Austen series. And what is that book? That's an even more interesting question. So originally, the plan was that book would be citation needed. Persuasion, modernization, gender swap, a wheelchair user heroine. I love this, but I got to September and I was realizing I wanted this to be ready for now. So it would be edited now. And I wasn't feeling the book. I wasn't in sync with Penny. I wasn't in, there was something off and I needed to really just put it aside. You know how when you can't figure out a word, you think of it when you stop thinking about the word. Like when you put it out of your head and you think about something else, all of a sudden the word comes to you. This was my entire life. I knew if I put aside citation needed, I'd be able to figure out what was wrong because I can focus on something else and let my brain just sort of process it. I call it intellection. If you've ever done the Clifton Strengths or Gallup's Strength Finder, you know the word intellection has a purpose, has a meaning. That is what my brain is doing. It is intellecting on an idea. It is turning it over in my head until it figures out what's wrong. And it did. It did figure out what's wrong. We're not going to talk about it because it's not time to talk about it. But what I decided to write instead, and I have a problem where I'm not competitive with other people and I'm not really competitive with myself. But if you challenge me to do something sort of silly, I'm going to accept the challenge. Read 50 books a year, challenge accepted. Knit an item a month, challenge accepted. And it's really, can I do it? It can't be the same thing you've challenged me to do year after year. Like, I get bored with those. I want something new. I want to push myself further. The year I wrote the Yom Tov series, I was like, could I write 4 little novelettes about Jewish holidays and my books in it? And I did. And then I was like, I'm not doing that again. I've done it. It's done. This October, I was like, if I'm not going to have citation needed ready, what am I going to release next? And I read a book that was a romance centered around a dating show, a dating reality show. And I was like, this would be fun for a Northanger Abbey modernization and a gender swap and a this and a that. And before I knew it, and this is like the very beginning of October, before I knew it, I was plotting this story and it was just coming like hotcakes. I was so excited. Talked to some friends, some fellow writers. They started like giving me more ideas, answering the questions with me that I had in my head. And I thought, I wonder if I could write this in October, write another book for National Novel Writing Month, because that I wanted to write in my fantasy pen name, and then come back to the first rom-com in December to edit it, to be edited by an editor in January. We're at the end of January. Today I got the line edits back on Romancing Mr. Tilney. It is Northanger Abbey connected to Love from Northanger Park's Katie. It is Hannah from that book. So that's Ethan's sister, if you've read it. She's the one who gets Katie and Ethan together, and now it's her turn for a love story. She is, at the last minute, asked to be the sort of bachelorette on a reality show after the original bachelorette shows up 6 months pregnant with the child of one of the potential contestants. It's not even an issue because it's already happened by the time the story begins. But she's just there. She's just the warm body to fill the spot, to keep the seasons moving. And then she meets Oscar Tilney, who, yes, I know it's a gender swap. She's the Tilney character, but I needed a Mr. Tilney. So he is David Tennant, a la Doctor Who. He's one of my two favorite Doctor Who's. So of course he was going to be a character eventually in one of these books. So Oscar Tilney, he's a winemaker. He is there to replace the baby daddy who got kicked off for impregnating the bachelorette girl. So they're not really supposed to connect. She's really just supposed to play the game the producers want her to play, and then she meets someone and they really just connect, and it becomes a battleground between her and the producers. And the joke about this one is, of all my books, because they all pass the Bechdel test, and I know the Bechdel test isn't a sign of quality, it's just a sign of representation, that there are two women in this book and they talk about something other than a man. All of my books pass the Bechdel test. This one will not, because every conversation they have is about, there are multiple women. There are 4 of the main characters are women. They're most women. There's really 3 main male characters, 4-ish. So it's at least equal, but the women only talk about the men because they're on a dating show. Like, there's no way this can pass the Bechdel test. And yet my editor was like, I think this is my favorite one so far. And I'm like, cause it is, cause it was fun and easy and light. I wrote the first draft in 2 weeks. Went back in December after writing 66,000 words for National Novel Writing Month, and added in another like 12,000 words to draft 2. My editor was like, read the first draft, gave me some feedback. She's like, just up a little emotion here, give us a little anger here. And she just sent, we are at the 24th when I'm recording this. She is done with edits. But we're still doing some bonus content on Patreon. So, Romancing Mr. Tilney, cover's coming out in about a month. I will share the new cover with you. I'm really excited about it. And then in April, we start reading the chapters. This will be 1 chapter a month because it is significantly shorter than anything I've written. Even though I added 12,000 words to it, it's only got about 16 chapters. So it'll be a little more than a year. But it gives me the time I need with citation needed. And I was like, let's get it out of my head so I can think about what's wrong. I figured out what was wrong. It also came, I'm going to be honest, I rarely read book reviews now because if they're not for me, 1, they're not for me, and 2, my ego can't handle it. especially if it's negative. So I just like the numbers. I like to see the numbers of reviews. Like there's 145 reviews. Great. Fantastic. That makes me feel excited. But I did read one negative review, and she said she didn't like Modern Persuasion because Frederick wasn't peacocking. And he was really supposed to, like, when Wentworth sees Anne, he wants to peacock. And I was like, I see the point, but that's not Frederick. That's not what Frederick does. But you know who does peacock? Penny is going to peacock. Oh my God, that's what's wrong. Penny needs to be peacocking. Penny has, and this is citation needed now, Penny, our main character, she's Penny in Modern Persuasion 2. She's a wheelchair user. When the first time she and Mason, the boy toy, are together and in love and engaged, she's looked down on in academic circles because she's not going to be an academic. But she is now like the executive director of essentially Wikipedia. Like she's in charge of the organization that runs Wikipedia. Like she jokingly says, I'm running the most popular website in the world. Okay, maybe not the most popular, maybe 7th, because you can't ignore the porn sites. And really, Wikipedia is 7th between like Amazon and Google and a bunch of porn sites. So fair to the porn sites. But also, she is important now. She might have been looked down upon in academic circles, but she is somebody in their world now. She does need to be peacocking. She does need to make him, at least at the beginning, think, what did I give up? What did I lose out on? That's Penny. And as soon as I knew that, I was like, yes, now I can write this book. Now I know what was wrong with my perspective. I wasn't letting Penny peacock her successes because everybody looks down on her. She is a wheelchair user. Everyone wants to help her, make her life easier. That is not Penny. Penny fights and takes what she wants because she is fighting for everything. So I'm getting ready in February to do a little more work on citation needed to get the next draft out, which I can't even pay attention to the previous drafts because she's different now. None of that works. But I did take a few of the characters. Some from other books are going to be visiting because this is now going to be the last book in the series. This is going to be our send-off for the 21st Century Austen series, and we're going to transition into some other things after that. So to begin with Persuasion and then to end with Persuasion, as soon as I realized I should write Romancing Mr. Tilney now and swap it out, I was like, oh, but then they're bookends, and it feels so in sync. It feels so, the synchronicity is just perfect. So starting in April, Romancing Mr. Tilney will be what you're reading on Patreon. There will be bonus stories, bonus content for those who are in the fan and super fan levels. And the super fans might get to make decisions directly about the next series. There's 2 options. One is a Jewish life cycle series that's going to sort of tag on to the Yom Tov series. And the other is to start the Knitters of the Table series, which is a spinoff coming from Unraveling Carrie Woodhouse and the Ladies at the Table. So if you didn't read that, that'll be where you want to start for that series. All right, it's almost 20 minutes of this. It's been a long update because it's been months. I am not going to promise, but I'm going to try to do these once a month again. Sometimes I just need to focus on the writing and not on the chit-chat between us. So at the beginning of the year, it's bigger and more important for the chit-chat when I'm trying to get my excitement up because I want to burn things to the ground and let the fire warm up my heart because it is cold. It is cold out today, which is why I'm like in a sweatshirt hoping the heat won't give out. It won't. It's a brand new heating system. So have a great probably February too. I'll probably see you at the end of February with another update video. But until then, happy winter and happy new year.